listeners. This is Atma Bodha. Today is podcast 77, the definition of reality. We've got quite a lot to tackle here, so let's begin. One of the biggest deceptions ever devised was to convince people that life can end. To define life by biological sensual parameters is to underestimate reality. Only material existence, the most superficial version of life, can have the illusion of death. Death itself was created as a release from the sensual prison, so that you don't need to be stuck in a biological body forever. Biology itself is a limitation in a sense because your unlimited consciousness is being confined into a mortal shell and conditioned to believe in your mortality. The whole concept that biological life is the real life because we can measure it, it is the exact opposite of what life actually is. Real life is freedom from any limitation, whereas biology is a celebration of limitation in a way. Anything measurable is limited. By measuring ourselves, we limit ourselves. As for me, I no longer have any beliefs. The concept of belief is an obsolete idea when you are more fully conscious. When omnipresent truth is experienced, you don't need to believe anything anymore. The problem is not that everything exists. It's that people are not thinking big enough. They have small ideas about themselves and the possibilities, and I say that respectfully. Limitation is only a result of being in this biological world. If it is possible to bend the rules of physics, it would only be possible when your own limitations are removed in your mind. When we become closed-minded, we are turning off this potential and making it dormant instead of activating it. As for me, I aspire to find the limits of the possible in what it means to be human, to find out what kind of superhuman feats and miracles that can be accomplished. I've been challenging everything, including gods, gurus, and authority figures all my life. Being fearless and speaking truth to power has gotten me into trouble on occasion. It's given me actual scars and put me into life-threatening situations. What some may write off as dreaming, for me, it is reality. It comes down to what is the nature of reality. Is it reality only because it is experienced via one or more of the five senses? Even this can be doubted unless there are witnesses. This is a problem. Reality then becomes physical, verifiable phenomena only. Dreams from dreamers like Walt Disney are not considered real until something like Disneyland or Disney World is made. But the world was already there before he built it. In the same way, the Absolute existed before the first holy book was written. It wasn't events on earth that defined it, but rather events on earth that are a result of it. As above, so below. The vast expanse of physical reality is infinitesimal compared to the overwhelming magnitude of the Absolute. And this concludes the written portion of the podcast, and so now we're going to go into that into more depth. And this is a bit of a controversial topic because it's something that's not really provable, is it? Yes, I can say, oh, well, I'm experiencing the absolute all the time. I'm always living in this unshakable bliss. But what can I do to prove that? It's a subjective experience. When you experience it for yourself, then you'll be like, wow, I'm part of the club now. I'm plugged in. But until you cross that threshold of illumination, perhaps there will always be a lingering doubt. But the fact of the matter is that when you look at the comprehensive whole of what we can see in the physical, we can recognize that there are certain phenomena that science has not been able to explain. And the mere fact of this lends one to believe that miracles can and do occur. There are credible stories of young children having vivid memories of their past life and leading their parents and showing them where they used to live and describe the life that they were living before. There's many, many cases about this, but this is not something that is fully explored by science because it's something that there's not an easy answer to. But the point is that when you look at life from the physical and you recognize that there's something beyond that you are more than your body, then what does that look like? Then obviously you start getting into the concept of, well then, if the body is not the only definition of who I am, then there must be something more, like a soul, some part of us that doesn't die, that lives on. And how does that living on look like? Well, it's been explained through yogic philosophy with the concept of reincarnation. And this concept might put a distaste in some people's mouths, especially if you're coming from a traditional religious perspective like Christianity and Judaism and the concept of afterlife and going to heaven. The same is true in Islam. They've got all the heavens all mapped out on what happens after you die. Because many people, they don't really like the concept of having to be born again into a new physical body and to live life with its ups and downs and its struggles all over again. But when you look at things from another perspective, you can recognize that it's actually a reason to celebrate, a reason of joy, a reason of love. Because it's only when we have a physical incarnation that we can more fully appreciate the subtleties and nuances of life. Because we can experience happiness and sadness and pain and pleasure and attachments, we can recognize what non-attachment is. By experiencing the opposites, we can experience what we want and what we want to go deeper into. And at this point, I want to go ahead and read another segment, and let's just combine this into two. To seek is to not find. Even in musical melodies, multiple instruments are perceived together as one. The mind can trick you into thinking you are multitasking, but like a CPU, it is only oscillating multiple inputs quickly, each processed one by one. When you desire love, you are not loving. If you have love, you feel desireless. If you want peace, you are not peaceful. If you seek truth, you don't have it. It is only when we stop seeking or wanting that we can have everything. And I quoted this before. Swami Sivananda said, quote, "To experience the infinite requires infinite patience. Yes, you can love desire. And by doing that, instead of feeling desire, you experience desirelessness. Love liberates your heart. Truth liberates your mind. Love is part of your most authentic self. To not feel love is to be insincere. If you are insincere, you are not yourself. If you are not yourself, you cannot be independent. Independence is the freedom to be yourself. And non-attachment is the first step to mastering it. The only reason non-attachment is possible is because it is not you. If it was you, then you would be inseparable from it. And so what is the definition of reality? Well, you make that definition. You can choose to live in heaven, and you can choose to live in hell. And many people are living in hell, and they're not realizing that they have a choice. Because even in prison, you can find refuge in your mind. And you can find refuge also in your heart. And the more we become sincere and authentic, the more love we feel, the more peace our mind is at, and the more inspiration that we can experience. And these are all very attainable things. These are not pie in the sky concepts. The beauty about love is that you can experience it all of the time. And the same thing is true of inspiration. That might be a bit more of a challenge to get to that place, but it's definitely achievable. And the reason I can say that, of course, is because in all gratitude, I feel very fortunate and lucky to be at this place where I can even give these podcasts and to talk about these things. And the reason I'm even giving these podcasts is because I'm trying to keep up with all the inspirations that I get and record them. Because they're not really inspirations only for me. They're inspirations I feel that can help a lot of people. Because when we have reality the way it is right now, we can understand that we can shape reality. That we can create the reality that we want. And not only for ourselves, but for our children and our children's children. And by acknowledging that you are something more, that you are not fear, you are not external desire, you are not anger, you are not negativity. These are not you. And how do you know it's not you? It's very simple. Because you're not happy when you experience these things. You become unbalanced. You lose peace. Whereas, who among anyone listening to this can honestly say that you don't want love? Who wants to say that you don't want your mother or your father to love you? Who wants to say that you don't want to love your children or your brother or your sister or your family? Love is important. It's an important part of our lives. And unlike what some unnamed gurus might indicate, love is not a product of the mind. It's not something on the same level as fear or desire. Because unlike fear or desire, When fear and desire go away, you don't miss it. You don't want it to come back. You want to be liberated from those things. But you can't say the same thing about love. And why is that? Because love is part of who you are. You want to be attached to love. Because if you eliminate love from your heart, you become loveless. You become a killjoy. You don't become happy with your life. It's a step in creating a kind of a hell for yourself. And why does it become a hell for yourself? Because that's not you. If it was you, and that was your reality, then you would be happy. Because you'd be like, oh, I'm liberated. I'm finally anger all the time. Oh, I'm liberated. I'm finally fear all the time. But no, nobody ever says that. And so what does that tell you about yourself? That's not the real you. That's not the sincere part of you. So what is reality? Reality is being real. What is being real? Being sincere, being authentic, being the true you, having truth as an important part of your life, staying true to yourself. That is what reality is about. Everything else, that's not reality. That is a substitute for reality. That's a temporary delusion. And everybody is going to be free of this delusion. It's inevitable. This is the future. This is what is going to happen for everyone. Nobody can stop it. But what we can do, for those of you who are interested, is that you can accelerate it. You can bring it into your life faster, stronger, with more power. To be stubborn about coming from a loving place. To be stubborn about feeling inspiration and feeling bliss. And having every day be a good day. Every day being a celebration. Because when it comes right down to it, what kind of reality would you want for yourself? Doesn't it make logical sense that life, your life, should be a celebration? That every moment of every day, every second, should be a celebration, a sacred celebration, in unity with nature, and to not let anything get in the way of that. And that is why people practice non-attachment, because you don't want to be attached to these negative things, desire and anger and fear. They just get in the way. Those are the problems. It's not about, oh, you have an ego. Oh, you don't have an ego. No, the issue is not about ego. The issue is, does desire rule your life? Does fear rule your life? Does anger rule your life? Do you recognize that you don't want those things? Do you recognize that the place you want to be coming from is a pure, sincere, authentic place of love and inspiration? And that is what the ultimate reality is about. Experiencing love and inspiration every second of every day. You can't experience these other things all the time anyway. Even if you tried, you could not be living in a state of desire all the time. You could not be living in a state of anger all the time. But you can. You can do these things with love and inspiration. This is Atmaboda signing off. And if you want, you can reach out at divinity.com and the various social media. You can make a comment as well on this. Until next time, everybody have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.